how the negotiations pan out and how the intra-country relationships evolve over the next few years will matter to Singapore as it begins to re-strategize its kind of export strategy to the rest of the world. If you look at the kinds of markets that Singapore is concerned with, China is very important, the US is very important, the Asia-Pacific region, Singapore is concerned about not only developing the ASEAN hinterland, but also maintaining links with Australia, New Zealand. That APEC region is of primary importance to Singapore. How that grows will also affect Singapore's response to developments in Europe. Where there are British companies who derive most of their revenue or their earnings from the international marketplace, with the fall in sterling, the value to foreign investors goes up because it's cheaper to buy, and because of international exposure, they're actually safer investments to buy into. So that we might see some acquisitions by international businesses of British companies. The other way of looking at it is the UK is also a very large investor in Asia. If you look at Singapore, UK companies have invested more than £30 billion in that market. And for Singapore, that is translated into jobs and investments of various kinds. If those companies aren't doing so well, there's also the risk that these companies, in looking over their global portfolio of activities, might begin to trim back some of their investments in markets like Singapore, and then thereby affecting the jobs and markets over there. The very impulse for Brexit was somehow a feeling that just being in the European market was constraining the energy and entrepreneurship of Britain. And I think Singapore recognizes that kind of energy because she has remained a very active global player in open markets. She has completely kind of withdrawn all her tariffs, provided fifth freedom rights for any airline that flies in Singapore. It's a very open economy. And I think that the advice is not unexpected, really is to diversify, make sure that you look at new markets. There are a lot of markets that are drawn out by traditional relationships, so the Commonwealth, Britain and the US and so on. I think now it's an opportunity for both Britain as well as Singapore to look afresh at some of the markets globally. You may want to spend more time developing markets in, say, Africa or South America or other geographies where you've actually not developed because the current relationships are proving stable. With the volatility, that again opens up opportunities for both sides. Global mobility will be a big issue, managing the flow of your talent across all your different businesses across the world. So an organization like HSBC will have to rebalance its staffing allocations globally to match the economic activity level. And if Asia proves to be a better bet in terms of returns, that's where you invest in your jobs and your skills and your people. I think that there's a lot of scope for HR to be more strategic in the way it looks at workforce planning. In this age where workforce planning doesn't only mean headcount, it also means what level you automate, how you use artificial intelligence in some of those functions, those customer-facing functions. This must be part of the new version of workforce planning. And I think HR has every chance of becoming a very strategic function, given that these two things are going to mesh or collide depending on how well you manage that transition.